Hey, tonight, you're not crawling into bed. You're climbing into a hammock one that swings slightly with the pulse of the ocean. Above you, a ceiling of stars through rotting canvas. Below you, the constant creak of timber, as if the ship is whispering in its sleep. Welcome aboard a 19th-century sailing vessel where every breath tastes like salt, wood tar, and something vaguely alarming, possibly moldy biscuits and unwashed feet. You're a sailor now, and in this world, dental hygiene. That ranks somewhere between don't drown and don't completely rot. The ship sways as you step barefoot across the damp deck, the wood grain rough and swollen under your toes. You squint into the pale morning light. The horizon goes on forever and frankly, it's making you a little seasick. You yawn. Instinctively, your hand moves toward a toothbrush that doesn't exist yet. Because it's 1830, you don't have a toothbrush. You have a pouch, and inside it, gunpowder. Yes, actual gunpowder black, gritty, smelling of smoke and iron. That's going into your mouth this morning. Before we go any further, take a second to like this video if you enjoy falling asleep to strange, forgotten corners of history, and subscribe if you'd like to keep wandering with me through time. And hey, drop a comment below and tell me, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? Alright, breathe in, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, ship-at-sea kind of white noise, because now, your journey begins. You shuffle toward the railings, your fingers brushing rough, salt-encrusted rope. The wind is cool and sharp. Below, the sea churns. Around you, life stirs slowly. Sailors stretch, spit, mutter half sentences. One man gargles with seawater and spits it directly into the ocean like it's a holy ritual. Another just scratches his beard and goes back to sleep on a coil of rope. There are no mirrors, no toothpaste, no privacy, but still, there's a kind of morning routine. You catch the scent before you see it, that acrid, sulfur-sweet tang. A teenage deckhand sits cross-legged near a barrel, grinding gunpowder between his fingertips and smearing it onto his teeth. The black grit stains his lips like ink. He grins at you, all gums and soot. Keeps the rot out, he says, like it's common knowledge. Is he right? Honestly, no one's sure. Some say it scours the teeth clean. Others think the saltpeter kills bacteria. A few whisper that it poisons you slowly, but no one's died yet. Charcoal, sulfur, salt. It's harsh, it's weird, but it's better than doing nothing. And when your breath smells like spoiled meat, and your gums feel like they've been chewed by rats, even the illusion of cleanliness feels like a gift. You reach into your own pouch and pinch out a small mound. It's coarse and oddly warm, crumbling like old sugar. There's no brush, of course, so you wrap a rag around your finger and dab on the powder. You start to scrub. It stings, it scratches. It tastes like metal and smoke and very old pennies. Your gums flare with pain, but you keep going. The discomfort feels useful. Like something is happening, something good. Or at least something not awful. An old sailor passes behind you and chuckles. Don't swallow it, he warns, voice like gravel. Had a lad do that once, spit soot for a week. You smirk, mouthful of ashes, and nearly choke laughing. The day creeps onward, more men stir. The deck becomes louder, boots thudding, barrels rolling, voices rising. Someone coughs up seawater. Someone else is shaving with a rusted blade and a shard of mirror. The guy next to you flosses with a thread pulled from his sock. Nobody says it, but those who try even with something as absurd as gunpowder earn a bit more respect. The cleanest mouth won't save you from scurvy, but it might keep your dignity intact for another day. Salt spray lashes your cheek, and you flinch. Some men use ocean water to wash. Others hoard rain in bits of leather or broken flasks. A few just stop caring entirely. What counts as clean out here is flexible. Still, you try, because that's all you can do. And somewhere between superstition and survival, you realize this isn't just about hygiene. It's about holding on to something human, something yours. There are whispers about toothworms, tiny imagined beasts that burrow into molars and cause decay. It sounds absurd, but out here, surrounded by sky and nothing, people believe stranger things. Gunpowder, for all its grit and burn, is one small defense. One half-believed miracle in a sea of rot. A bell clangs, loud and shrill. It's time, ropes to pull, sails to trim, decks to scrub. You wipe your soot-covered finger on your trousers, tuck the pouch back into your belt, and offer the sea a crooked, powder-streaked grin. Your mouth feels raw. Your breath smells like the aftermath of a cannon blast, but you feel alive. And as your boots thud across the deck, the taste of fire still lingering on your tongue, you already know, tomorrow morning, you'll do it again. Because on this ship, every ritual is a battle. And you're not losing today. You don't get a snooze button at sea. Not when your gums are still tingling from the grit of gunpowder and your lips feel faintly scorched. No sooner have you tucked the pouch back into your coat and smudged your blackened finger across your trousers than the ship's bell tolls again. Louder this time, sharp, final, impossible to ignore. It's dawn now officially, the kind of dawn that doesn't sneak in gently, but crashes over you like a rogue wave. A burst of gull cries above deck pierces your skull, followed by the groaning stretch of sailcloth catching a wind shift. You pull yourself from the hammock, still half dreaming of dry beds and fresh water, and find yourself wading once again through the gritty, salt-stiffened rituals of waking up on a 19th century ship. Around you, the world is already in motion. Men stomp past in heavy boots, calling out half-coherent orders. The floor sways underfoot not dramatically, just enough to remind you that your equilibrium belongs to the sea now. You stagger toward the barrel marked for washing, a generous term if there ever was one. It's just seawater, stagnant and warm from yesterday's sun, but it's what you've got. You splash your face, the sting hits instantly. Salt water burns your eyes, fills your nostrils, and clings to your skin like a wet slab. It doesn't cleanse at carbs. Somewhere deep in your gut, you consider going back to bed. Then you remember your bed is a damp hammock strung above a man who snores like a dying walrus. You splash again. There's no soap, no towel. No sense of freshness, but there's rhythm and oddly, a kind of dignity in that. The men around you, hardened and half-feral, still honor this unspoken dance of scraping, rinsing, and spitting into the wind. Not for vanity, for survival, you glance to your left. One sailor is rubbing his face raw with a coarse bit of cloth. Another is already chewing something jerky, or maybe the same old leather he has been working on all week. Improvisation is hygiene's closest cousin here. You reach for the pouch again, gunpowder, part survival tool, part talisman. You're not even sure if it's helping anymore, but it's what you've got. You smear another pinch along your molars with the edge of a frayed rope. The charcoal grits between your teeth like sandpaper. It hurts less than before, which is almost disappointing. Pain, at least, felt productive. The taste is still terrible acrid, burnt, and strangely metallic, but you endure it like everything else, with grit and ritual. Next to you, a toothless man gargles, then spits into the wind. Keeps the mouth spirits out, he mutters, half to himself. You give him a look, he doesn't elaborate. And still, you don't skip it, for all its discomfort, this bizarre, briny performance grounds you. Somewhere between the splashes, the scrubs, and the shared grunts of half-awake men, there's a kind of identity something that separates you from the ship, the sea, the rot. Maybe this is what dignity looks like when civilization is miles away and land is just a memory. You wipe your hands down your coat, gunpowder smudging the fabric like soot on parchment. You pass a brass plate mounted to the mast and catch your reflection faint, warped, almost ghostly. Your face looks older than it should. Your eyes are hollow. But your breath doesn't stink like death, and your teeth, though stained, still cling to your gums. That's something. A clang rings out from the galley. The cook's bell. Breakfast. Probably salted pork again, and maybe those lumpy things they swear are beans. Your stomach turns, but your feet move on instinct. Around you, the ship groans back to life, sails creak, ropes tighten, men shout. Your mouth still buzzes faintly from the powder, and as you grab a wooden bowl and join the slow march toward the galley, you remind yourself there are worse ways to start a day at sea than by fighting a tiny, daily war against your own decay. Especially when the next battle is just a spoonful away. You linger a moment on that image, the powder-blackened finger, the half-smile, the confident way he swore it helped. And just as you're about to brush it off as a one-off sailor's madness, another man plops down beside you at the mess table, slapping a small paper twist beside your barely touched slab of salt pork. The packet bursts with a soft PFFFT, sending a cloud of black dust into the air. You cough, so do to others. Gunpowder again. Only this time, no explanation, just understood. He pinches a bit between his fingers, mutters something unintelligible, and starts rubbing it across his teeth like a man polishing rust off a musket. The sight is casual routine, even, but there's something deeply unsettling about watching someone willingly rub cannon fodder into their gums. You look down at your own salt pork, now with a light dusting of powder. You blink, appetite gone. The ship rocks gently, the familiar sway you've half learned to dance with. You lean into it without thought, chewing mechanically, your mind spiraling elsewhere. Who started this? Who first looked at leftover gunpowder and thought, yes, this will do wonders for my teeth? It's a ridiculous question. And yet, maybe not, because here you are floating on an endless gray sea, sharing breakfast with men who treat explosives like mouthwash. Let's be clear, this isn't just some joke among bored deckhands. It's a genuine ritual. For many of them, it's the only dental routine they'll ever know. And while the idea of brushing with gunpowder might sound absurd to your modern sensibilities, it makes a strange kind of sense out here where toothbrushes are rare, toothaches are constant, and every port is months away. Black powder real 19th century stuff is a cocktail of charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate. Charcoal, you remember, has a long history of use in oral hygiene. Even the ancients used it. It's gritty, mildly abrasive, decent at scrubbing off plaque. Saltpeter, the potassium nitrate, has antiseptic qualities too. Some sailors believed it kept the gums from rotting. And sulfur, well, that's just along for the ride. Smelly, bitter, but necessary if you're planning to actually like the stuff, which, thankfully, no one is, at least, not yet. But for all its flaws, for all its stench and sting, this powder is one of the few things standing between a sailor and a festering jaw. You've heard stories how a simple molar infection can spread, cause swelling, fever, even death. If rubbing a little morning cannon kiss into your gums means dodging that fate, you can understand the logic. It's about survival. A rotten tooth isn't a cosmetic concern, it's a health hazard. And in the absence of doctors or dentists or clean tools, you use what you have. If that means turning cannon powder into a health tonic, so be it. You run your tongue along your own teeth, hesitating. Your molars feel dull, no worse than yesterday, which counts as a win. There's still that sore spot on your gum sharp when touched, but manageable. For now, another sailor passes by, dropping a leather pouch onto the table. More powder, he treats it gently, tying the cord with the same care someone else might give to medicine. And in truth, that's exactly what it is here. Gunpowder isn't a weapon unless it's lit. Unlit, it's medicine. Context is everything. Some ships have even formalized the ritual. Morning scrubbing is part of muster a stand to. Then scrub, one officer barks like it's scripture. The more disciplined the ship, the more likely you lines see these strange little habits passed around. Lemon juice rations to fight scurvy, vinegar to wash the mouth, and yes, powder to polish the teeth. Other ships, less structured, they hand you a rag, some bark, and a vague threat about dying with your jaw half rotted. You glance across the deck now, where sunlight has begun to spill between the rigging, turning the canvas a golden hue. The wind's picked up, the sails puff gently, and below your feet, the usual chaos hums, barrels rolling, ropes tightening, boots thudding against the boards. It's a floating world equal parts disorder and routine. And somehow, amid all this, you've accepted that rubbing gunpowder on your gums is just part of life. You exhale, letting the air carry that faint bitter scent of sulfur and charcoal from your mouth. You wonder, will someone, centuries from now, read about this and laugh? Shake their heads, be horrified and almost certainly. But today, it's just another morning at sea. Another ritual among men who've traded land for water, comfort for routine, and toothbrushes for powder pouches. You rise from the bench, brushing crumbs and soot from your hands, and glance down into the belly of the ship. Somewhere down there, in the shadowed hold, or tucked behind crates of salted cod, someone swears they found a new remedy, something about lamp oil and eel bones. You shake your head, grin, and prepare yourself. Because in the 19th century, nothing is off the table, not even when it comes to your teeth. You're still working the aftertaste of gunpowder off your tongue when the midday sun rises higher sharp, relentless, bleaching everything in its glare. The deck becomes a stage of squints and sweat, rope coils glisten. The iron shot stacked beside you absorbs heat like a furnace. You lean into the shadow of a barrel, but it offers little relief. Over by the mast, two older sailors resume an argument that began sometime during breakfast. Sulfur burns the rot clean, one says, rubbing the gap between his teeth like he's got proof smoldering there. That's why it stings, it's killing the bad. The other snorts and spits. Right, and took my molars with it. You chuckle under your breath, the dry scrape of laughter edged with pain. This is what passes for health science at sea, superstition salted with personal trauma. But their debate gets you thinking again. Why did gunpowder become the go-to remedy in the first place? When did blow-it-up logic become the foundation of dental care? It always circles back to the same trio of ingredients: charcoal, saltpeter, and sulfur. Charcoal at least made sense. Its history ran deep, even ancient. The Egyptians swore by it, and it was prized for absorbing odors and scrubbing grime. Mixed with water or spit, it had texture, grit, something to do with your hands and teeth when everything else felt beyond reach. Saltpeter had a medical reputation too: cooling, antiseptic. The kind of thing you'd find listed in some back alley apothecary's remedy book between tincture of leeches and boiled snail shells. In theory, it tightened tissues, drew out fever, maybe eased infection, if you squinted hard enough at the logic. But sulfur, that was the wild card. You'd heard stories. Sulfur baths for bad joints, sulfur salves for skin. Even tales of country doctors swearing by a teaspoonful to cleanse the gut, though no one ever looked well afterward. The smell alone could make a grown man gag rotten eggs and brimstone. Still, the belief clung on. If it burned, it must be working. And sometimes, when your gums are bleeding and your mouth pulses with every heartbeat, pain feels like progress. You shift against the crate, wincing as your shoulder reminds you of yesterday's rope duty. Across the deck, the cannon hatch lies closed and padlocked. But you know what's behind it? Barrels of black powder stacked tight, dry, sacred. Some meant to kill, some, if you're careful, meant to clean. Not that anyone talks openly about stealing powder. It's understood, done quietly. A pinch here, a scoop there. Never enough to be missed, but always with that edge of risk. One sailor once thought warming the powder might activate it. All he activated was his eyebrows. Lesson learned, cold powder only. And that strange duality sticks with you, how the same substance can blow a hole in a hole or gently scour your gum line. Sailor efficiency, one item, 5 uses. Knife, spoon, weapon, shirt, rag, pillow. Drinking water, shirt rinse, wound wash. Why not toothpaste too? Your gaze drifts toward a younger sailor, gnawing on a short twig, his jaw working slow, deliberate circles. Not gunpowder this time. It's a miswak stick, or something like it. You've seen it used in desert ports: Africa, Arabia, maybe India. A branch, frayed at one end, turned into a natural brush. No stink, no stain, just quiet rhythm. He works it like a ritual. It looks peaceful. You wonder if it actually works better than the black grit you've been scrubbing with. But old habits dig deep. Reaching to your belt, you feel the small pouch growing lighter by the day. You didn't plan to use so much of it, but maybe it isn't about cleaning anymore. Maybe it's just comfort, control, in a world ruled by waves and weather, powder and orders. Having something you choose to do matters. Back in port, you'd heard whispers of new powders: chalk and mint and coral, all wrapped in fancy paper for ladies and landmen. Some even claimed to whiten your teeth, like that mattered when half your meals were biscuit dust and rum. You weren't born for white smiles, you were born to keep your teeth from falling out. The wind picks up again, flapping sails and curling around the mast. The ship groans slightly as it turns with the swell. You hear boots on the upper deck, a shouted command in the distance. Someone's shifting barrels near the hold. It's the sound of the day resuming, relentless, structured, loud. But before you rise, you spit over the side, just a little fleck of black, catching the sun as it falls. You've no idea if it's helping. But it's something. In this place, that's enough. You straighten, roll your sore shoulder, and start walking. The barrels aren't going to lash themselves, and the tide waits for no man, not even one still chewing soot. By now, the days have softened into each other's sunrise, canvas, sweat, salted meat, the constant hush of water beneath the hull. You lose track of time not by clocks, but by the rhythm of the ship. And amid this endless pattern, you've grown acutely aware of what's missing. trees, doors, mirrors, toothbrushes, and any place that sells them. You run your tongue along the back of your teeth and wince. A dull ache pulses near the left molar, just under the gum line. It's been there for days now, flaring every time you bite into ship-s biscuit or chew a strip of salted pork too quickly. You keep telling yourself it's healing, but some quiet, cynical part of you suspects it's becoming a permanent fixture like the barnacles clinging to the hull. This morning, before the heat swells again, you catch sight of a veteran sailor hunched beside a barrel, brushing with something that looks more invention than instrument, a stick of wood tied with frayed rope, dipped in water, rubbed through black grit. Gunpowder, probably, or charcoal scraped from the edge of a kettle. He scrubs like he's scrubbing rust from iron, slow and circular. That's the way of it here sailors make do. No toothbrush and fine, you use what you have. A chewed stick, a curled bit of sailcloth, a sliver of canvas wrapped around a finger, even, on occasion, an old nail jagged, blunt, dangerous. Not for finesse, just friction, just enough to say, I tried. You tried the rope trick once when the ache in your jaw wouldn't let you sleep. It worked for a moment until you drove a splinter into your gum line and bled for 2 days. You spat red for hours and swore off rope dentistry forever. But the irony isn't lost on you. A splinter or an abscess pig you're suffering. Still, you've heard of worse. One man swore by fish bones. Another used a sharpened spoon. A third chewed rough cloth dipped in vinegar until his tongue stung. Pain, it seems, was always part of the ritual. If it didn't hurt, it didn't feel real. And at sea, reality was the only currency left. You lean against the warm curve of the mast and absently rub your gum with the pad of your thumb. There's something wedged between your back teeth hard, dry, unrelenting. Dried beef maybe, or biscuit. You fish at it with a nail, sighing as it refuses to budge. Another unwanted passenger on this long voyage. A young deckhand strides by, grinning like he's cracked some great code. Whale hair, he declares, holding up the end of what looks like a paintbrush trimmed within an inch of its life from the galley broom. You blink. You're brushing your teeth with a kitchen brush. Sanitized it, he says proudly, walking off before you can reply. You stare after him, unsure whether to admire his ingenuity or report him to the cook. But it fits. Out here, everything is dual purpose. Knives stir stew and scrape barnacles. Clothes become pillows and the galley broom. Apparently part of someone's dental regimen. You varied or maybe just heard stories of men who kept scraps of sail in tins and rinsed them in rum weekly, believing it kept their mouths cleaner. Some captains even made hygiene mandatory, inspecting teeth every Friday like checking rifles. Not out of compassion, but practicality, bad teeth meant bad tempers. Bad tempers meant mutiny. It wasn't about vanity. Sailors didn't expect perfect smiles, they just didn't want to starve. Lose too many teeth, and you couldn't bite hardtack, couldn't bite, couldn't eat, couldn't work. It was that simple. You pull a bit of stiff sailcloth from your pouch, your own, salt-caked and fraying, but yours. Wrap it tight around a finger, dab it in a pinch of powder, and begin scrubbing. Slow, careful, circling across your molars, the cloth scratches, your gums twinge. You flinch but keep going. It's the only defense you have. The taste is what you'd expect. Salt, iron, maybe a hint of burnt wood. No lather, no freshness. Just the soft rasp of cloth on enamel, the creak of the mast behind you, and gulls wheeling somewhere above. You rinse with water a few swallows left in a shared flask and spit over the rail. It's not clean, not really, but it feels like it is. You sit for a while, watching the flecks vanish into the churn of blue and white foam. The wine shifts, and the galley scent rides up again. Burnt oats, yesterday's fish, the familiar sting in your nose. Still, your mouth doesn't throb anymore, not right now. And in a life where everything rots from boots to rations to men, that's a small miracle. You press your tongue against your teeth, testing. It hurts a little less. Maybe you've won today's battle. Maybe not, but you did something. You showed up, you scrubbed. And in the world of 19th century sailing, that kind of effort is the only kind that matters. You've been at sea long enough now that the days blur sunrise, sails, salt meat, sweat, sleep, repeat. But what you haven't yet gotten used to is the absence of things. No walls, no trees, no privacy, no toothbrush. And definitely no pharmacy aisle. Your teeth, meanwhile, are hanging on. Barely. You think. There's a raw patch near your back molar that flares every time you bite down too hard on ship's biscuit. You prod it occasionally with your tongue, not sure if it's healing or slowly becoming part of the ship's structure. This morning, you spot one of the older sailors hunched over a barrel with a strange tool in hand. It's a piece of rope, frayed at the end, twisted around a short stick like a sad, soggy broom. He dips it into a tin cup of water, rubs it in a bit of dark grit, probably gunpowder or charcoal, and begins brushing his teeth in slow, aggressive circles. You watch, transfixed. It's inventive. That's the thing about 19th century sailors. They made do. If you didn't have a toothbrush, which most didn't, you found something that worked close enough, a chewed stick. A rolled scrap of canvas, even an old nail. Yes, a nail was reportedly used by some men to scrape off plaque. It was all about friction, not finesse. Historians have found journals and ship logs that reference scrapers and toothsticks, though they're rarely described in detail. Sailors didn't get poetic about their hygiene tools. They weren't carving toothbrush handles out of ivory. They were trying not to die from infected gums before payday. You tried the frayed rope once, back when your gums first started to ache. It worked, kind of. At least until you got a splinter and decided you'd rather risk gingivitis than oral carpentry. Still, some version of this practice goes back centuries. In parts of the Middle East, as mentioned earlier, people used miswak twigs from specific trees like the Salvadora persica for dental hygiene. And it worked. The twigs had natural antibacterial properties and just the right texture to clean without shredding your mouth. But your rope, not quite the same. And if you didn't have a stick or cloth or rope, you used your finger. Simple as that. Dip, dab, scrub. The friction alone, sailors believed, was better than nothing. Even if it just moved the grime around a bit, it made you feel cleaner. You lean against the mast and absent-mindedly rub your gums with your thumb. There's a grain of something stuck between your teeth, dried beef, maybe, or biscuit. You try to dig it out with a fingernail. No luck. It's going to stay there for a while, becoming part of you, like all things do at sea. One of the newer deckhands comes over, grinning like he's figured out life. He holds up what looks like the bristly end of a paintbrush. "Whale hair," he says proudly, from the galley broom. You blink. You're brushing your teeth with a kitchen brush. "Yup," he says, completely unbothered. "Trimmed it myself. Sanitary enough." Then he shrugs and walks off, whistling. You watch him go, torn between horror and admiration. Sailor innovation truly knows no bounds. There are stories, perhaps apocryphal, of men sharpening the end of a wooden spoon to a point and using that to pick their teeth. Others used fish bones, especially the small, flat ones, as makeshift toothpicks. Some even chewed coarse cloth dipped in vinegar to scrub the inside of their mouths. Were these things effective? Debatable. Were they painful? Absolutely. But they gave the illusion of care, and out here, that counted for something. What's strangely endearing is how seriously some sailors took it. One diary mentions a man who stored his cleaning cloth in a sealed tin to keep it fresh and washed it in rum once a week. Another described how his captain insisted on inspecting the men's teeth every Friday, believing that poor hygiene led to sour tempers and sluggish limbs. He wasn't entirely wrong. Historians still debate whether this was widespread naval policy or just eccentric captains, but either way, it speaks to a truth. Teeth mattered. They were tools, part of your strength. Lose enough of them, and you couldn't eat the hardtack. Couldn't eat, couldn't work. You were dead weight. You think about that as you pull a small piece of sailcloth from your pouch. It's stiff with salt, fraying at the edges, but it's yours. You wrap it around your index finger, dab it with a bit of powder, and begin the slow, careful scrubbing along your molars. You wince as the rough edge hits a tender spot. Your gums pulse. You keep going. The cloth tastes like salt and iron. There's no lather, no foam. Just the quiet, rhythmic sound of cloth scraping tooth, the background creak of ropes, and the cry of gulls circling overhead. You rinse with a swig of water, not the best, slightly warm, probably shared by 5 other men today, but it washes away the grime. You spit over the side and watch the black-specked saliva drift down into the churning sea. It's not minty fresh, but it's done. You sit there a moment, just breathing, The wind shifts, and the smell of the galley drifts up burnt oats, maybe fish. It's not pleasant, but your mouth doesn't feel like it's dying anymore, at least not until lunch. Because it's over-salted beef, not long after the bell rings and the men crowd the galley rail, that it happens you feel the crack, hear it almost, a splintering pop inside your head, and just like that, your first tooth comes out. You flick the tooth into the ocean, one less thing to carry. And just like that, the sea swallows your molar without judgment, no splash, no ceremony. The wind shifts, tugging at the rigging like an impatient reminder. Day waits for no one. That night, you dream of chewing rocks. You wake up to a scratching sound. Not the gentle creak of the hull or the soft snore of the gunner in the next hammock, but something closer, sharper, relentless. It burrows through the half-silence like a mouse with iron claws. You lift your head, groggy, and peer over the side of your hammock. There he is, Thompson, the mop-headed deckhand, barely 16 and already older than sin, crouched over a bucket with something in his mouth. You squint harder. He's brushing, not with a brush, but a stick. A frayed twig, not at the end like a tiny broom. Miswak, you think. You've heard the name whispered in foreign ports, seen it traded between sailors and spice vendors, a gift from the East. A scrap of old world wisdom surviving in new world rot. He glances up and sees you watching, shrugs, better than using rope. He mutters through clenched teeth. He's not wrong. You've seen men scrub with all manner of things, hemp fibers soaked in vinegar, pine slivers dipped in seawater, even the chewed end of a gull feather. If it could scrape or sting, it went in someone's mouth. You roll onto your back and stare at the ceiling beam just above your face, the wood splintered by years of fists, feet, and forgotten tempers. A question floats up from somewhere deep. Is any of this working? Not just the miswak, the ash rubbing, the vinegar, the gunpowder, the ritual, any of it. Historians would later argue whether sailors even cared about clean teeth, or whether it was all instinct and superstition. But you know what you've seen, a man holding his face like it might fall off. A shipmate sobbing into a bucket of salt, a carpenter with a single tooth left and a mouthful of regrets. So maybe, in your own small rebellion, you care. You reach into your sea chest and pull out your own invention, a strip of rag, knotted tight at one end, black with soot from the galley's fire. You wrap it around your finger and begin to scrub, gently but firmly, across your remaining teeth. The molar's empty socket throbs as you avoid it. The rest of your gums sting. You spit into an old tin cup. It comes out dark, acrid, but it feels like something real, a ritual, a tether. From the bunk opposite, you notice a small cloudy bottle by Thompson's feet. Vinegar, sailor's mouthwash. When mixed with brine or rum, it burns like justice. You've heard of worse. Some chew on pepper seeds. Others gargle mustard water. One madman used tobacco spit and swore it worked right up until his tongue swelled like a dead fish. Still, under modernize, a few of these methods almost make sense. Miswak, for instance, carries natural antiseptics, charcoal cuts grime. Saltwater cleanses wounds even now. Gunpowder. A desperate gamble, but the carbon helps. Maybe, without realizing it, these sailors built a toolkit from pain and perseverance. Superstition still clings to the edges, though. The bosun once warned you not to clean your teeth on Sundays. Brings bad wines, he said. Another claimed if you brushed more than twice a week, the ship's keel would split. Logic be damned, but tonight, you choose to believe in reason. You rinse with the last of your water. It tastes like rope and rust. Still, you swish and spit. A few moments pass in quiet contemplation until the shadows speak. You'll rub those teeth clean out of your skull, lad. Boswell, the carpenter. He emerges from his bunk like a ghost in wool, squinting through the dim lantern glow. He has one tooth, dead center, top row. It juts out like a sentinel, watching over the wreckage of what once was a full smile. You nod at him. Better clean teeth than none. He chuckles, gravel-throated. That's what I said. Before the rum got him, he eases back into his hammock with a groan. Thompson finishes up, spits into the bucket, and kicks it beneath his bunk with a thud. The scratching stops, the silence returns. And in that silence, something unexpected blooms, calm. The world outside your ship is wild, wet, and merciless. But this nightly ritual, this fire soot, vinegar, burnt thread routine anchors you. It's a quiet declaration of defiance. You're still here, still human, still trying. You close your eyes and picture your teeth not yellowed or cracked, but white and smooth, like river stones beneath sunlight. You know it's a lie. They're battered and chipped and probably plotting mutiny. But belief is sometimes more important than truth. Besides, you once caught the captain cleaning his teeth with a quill and a splash of port wine. That memory alone makes you smile. Above, the timbers groan like old men with stiff knees. The wind exhales through the rigging. Someone coughs, then mutters something about pickles in their sleep. You let the rhythm of the ship cradle you, the sting still fresh in your mouth, your breath heavy with ash and vinegar and resolve. And just before sleep claims you again, you wonder how far can one smile really carry in a world like this? Far enough, you hope. Far enough to last one more day. You drift off with ash on your breath, a sting in your gums, and the faint, irrational hope that you'll still have all your front teeth by next port. But sleep, like everything on a ship, never lasts long. You're shaken awake not by a dream, but by the sound of boots stomping down the passageway and a guttural voice barking your name. Mess duty, you groan. It's your turn. And just like that, you're back on your feet, dragging your half-asleep body toward the galley, where the air is thick with the smell of despair and overcooked salt cod. Tonight, your teeth aren't the only thing under siege. The galley is a hellish corner of the ship, cramped, sweltering, and haunted by every culinary mistake the crew has ever made. Dried cabbage water simmers in a pot like a potion gone wrong. Something that used to be a turnip has become a new life form. And hovering over it all is Gristle, the cook and ogre of a man with a face carved from beef jerky and a voice like burnt rope. You don't talk much to Gristle, no one does. But tonight, as he slaps a ladle into your hands and points at a pot with something crusted to its sides, you notice his teeth. Or rather, the ruins of what used to be teeth. Yellowed, broken, barely hanging on. It's like looking at fossils launched in a cliff. You take the hint. Whatever you do here, try not to end up like that. As you scrub at the pot, steam curls around your face, and every breath you take is a mistake. The reek seeps into your pores. It makes you think about your mouth again. Not just the teeth, but the breath. Because out here, bad breath is a weapon, and not a good one. You remember what it's like below deck close quarters, hammocks strung like spider webs, men packed tighter than biscuits in a barrel. One whiff of a foul mouth, and you're everyone's least favorite shipmate. Sailors have started fights over less, so they chew things. Coffee beans, cloves, even rope soaked in lemon juice if they can get it. Not for hygiene, for mercy. You once saw a man rinse with straight vinegar, then puff his cheeks and spit like a cannon. He said it made him pleasant to speak with. Another used burnt bread crusts mixed with rum. Claimed it scrubbed his soul, not just his tongue. These aren't luxuries, they're social survival tools. Gristle, oddly generous, hands you a small tin. It rattles like bones, inside, soot, chalk, and dried mint flakes. Tooth powder, he grunts. Surgical supplies, probably. You raise an eyebrow. Mint, on this ship. He shrugs. Could be fungus. Either way, clears the tongue. You pocket it, just in case. Later, just as you're scrubbing a pot that smells like rotting seaweed, the galley door bangs open. A gang of sailors tumbles in, soaked and laughing, fresh from storm patrol. They smell of wet rope and death. Mackie holds up a bottle, tooth tonic. He declares, proudly swishing, what is clearly just gin. You watch as each man takes a turn, swish, spit, grin. It's like communion, if communion involved liquor and no gods. Stern, not to be outdone, pops something black into his mouth. Garlic, he mumbles around the clove, roasted. For the rats in your mouth, you try not to gag. Eventually, your shift ends. You leave the galley with your hands raw and your dignity scorched. Back in the crew quarters, the nightly rituals have resumed, brushing, flossing, rinsing. One sailor is using a frayed rope end. Another dear Neptune is working his gums with a fishbone. You don't ask. Instead, you sit on your bunk, pull out the tin from Gristle, and sprinkle a pinch of its contents onto your damp cloth. The mint is stale, the chalk grits like sand, and the soot turns your spit into something you don't want to describe. But the sting feels familiar now, reassuring. You swish some vinegar to finish. It burns. You spit into a cup and stare at the flecks of black. the strange grainy foam. Maybe it's just grit, maybe it's working. Either way, you feel cleaner, and something else, too connected. Because here in the murky, swaying belly of a ship slicing through night and storm, that bitter scrub has become a lifeline, a small, defiant act. The barest whisper of civility, you glance around. Dozens of sailors, half asleep or half mad, all doing the same scraping, scrubbing, swishing. It's like watching monks in a sacred ritual, a brotherhood of battered gums. You lean back, the ship creaks like an old throat clearing. Someone hums a sea tune in their sleep, a rat scurries behind a barrel. And you think again of what someone once told you in a portside tavern. A sailor's smile is the last thing he owns. You run your tongue across your teeth. Not perfect, not white, not even all there. But they're still yours. And in a world of storms and rot and endless orders, that's worth more than gold. You close your eyes, salt on your tongue, ash in your breath. And just enough mint to believe tomorrow won't taste quite as bad. You close your eyes, your teeth feel strange raw, but alive. Not perfect, but yours. And just as sleep begins to settle in, somewhere between your ribs and the creak of the ship's beams, you feel it a jolt. A sound, not loud, just off, like a whisper that doesn't belong. Then comes the sharper clatter of tin on wood. You groan, probably someone kicking over a mug or tripping on a coil of rope. It happens so often it barely registers anymore. But this time it lands wrong, too sharp, too sudden, and now your body's alert. Your eyes open, your breath comes slow and sour. Your tongue feels like copper. You're awake. A new day or close enough, still pitch dark, but the horizon has that faint, aching glow that means dawn isn't far behind. You swing your legs out of your hammock, wincing as bare feet touch cold planks. You grope for your boots in the dark. They smell like salt and mildew, and then it hits you. Today's inspection, not your hammock, not your boots, no, this is the worst kind, the surgeon's morale and hygiene round. You grimace and instinctively cover your mouth. It feels dry, gritty, your gums are tight. You grab your little cloth satchel and spill its contents into your lap. Scraps of sailcloth, a crusted pinch of powdered brick, a touch of sea salt, and your most prized possession, the stub of a charcoal stick already worn smooth from use. You dip the cloth in your water flask, dab some brick powder, and start scrubbing with purpose. You scrub until your gums sting, until your teeth feel chalky and raw, because you know what's at stake. You've seen that cursed iron crank, the tooth key, they call it. It's twisted grip, it's brutal twist, it's not surgery, it's wrenching metal against bone, right on the deck, in front of everyone. Better to bleed now than scream later. You glance across the bunk room. Pyatt, your bunkmate, is flossing with what looks like tarred rope. Gets the bits, he mumbles with a lopsided grin. You nod politely and try not to gag. Footsteps, the surgeon's coming. He's a wiry man with sunken eyes and hands like old parchment stained in ink and tobacco. His lantern swings low, he doesn't speak. Just pokes, pries, inspects, a man coughs. Another pulls his cap lower over his eyes like he might vanish. Then it's your turn. You sit up straight. Breathe through your nose. He peers in. His breath smells like bitter cloves. His lantern flickers across your teeth. He grunts non-committal and moves on. You exhale so hard you feel dizzy. No crank today. And here's the part no one really admits. That tiny nod from the surgeon. It feels like a medal, like winning, because out here, there's so little you control. You can't stop storms. You can't stop orders. You can't stop rot. But you can maybe outrun tooth decay. You keep thinking about that as the sun rises slow and stubborn over a restless sea. Later that morning, you find yourself slouched beside a stack of water barrels, lazily watching the younger lads tend to their teeth like they're polishing sabers. One boy uses seawater and burnt ash. Another whittled a twig into a frayed end that almost passes for a toothbrush. You admire his effort. And then there's the soft-cheeked new recruit. You squint. He's got a pinch of something dark and gritty in his palm. Gunpowder. Where'd you get that? You ask. He jumps. Just a pinch from the armory, he says, nervous. Mix it with vinegar. He scratches his head. Didn't have any. Used rum. You stifle a chuckle. That'll do. There's something sweet about it. A kind of ragged ingenuity. No textbooks, no training. Just stories passed down the rails and decks and across hammocks, folk science by candlelight. You've heard it all: crushed coral, powdered oyster shell, even resin boiled with pine ash. There was one quartermaster who swore by tobacco juice, but his breath could melt varnish. Still, there's beauty in the weirdness. A ship of misfits, outcasts, dreamers, and drifters connected by salt, sweat, and the quiet belief that a cleaner mouth might just be the difference between madness and survival. By sundown, the ritual resumes. You swish a bit of seawater just enough to rinse. You rub with your cloth again. You sit by the rail and feel the wind, heavy with brine and possibility. And as stars pierce the sky, you feel that strange little thing again: control. No, not perfection, not even cleanliness, but resistance. In a world where you might drown, burn, or vanish without a name, you brushed your teeth today, and that matters. Just like it will matter tomorrow when a new arrival stumbles on deck holding a pouch of powder and a hopeful grin. You don't sleep well, not because of storms or shouting or swaying hammocks, but because your teeth feel like they're humming. Maybe it's the vinegar, or the brine, or the gunpowder blend you tried after supper. You're not sure, but as the night passes, your mouth feels like a forge that never quite cools down. When morning creeps over the horizon, it brings no calm. Just the stench burnt biscuit crusts and dried sweat baked into every plank. But beneath it all is something stranger, a sharp scent like rust, like blood. Your nose wrinkles before your eyes even open. You sit up slowly. Tongue runs over your teeth, gritty again. All that scrubbing yesterday, all those experiments, and still, they feel like gravel. You sigh and swing your legs over the hammock, boots searching for the floor. Time to start again. Somewhere aft, you hear bubbling, someone's boiling seawater again. Probably not for food. No, this batch is bound for wounds, laundry, and maybe someone's twisted idea of a rinse. You trudge over, curiosity dragging you faster than your feet want to go. A circle has already formed around a barrel. Sailors lean in, cradling cups of something foul-smelling and faintly brown. You recognize the sour bite of vinegar, the tang of salt, and a murky note of something metallic, almost like oxidized copper. One man swishes, swears, and spits into the sea. Burns like Satan's spit, he mutters, but the worms hate it. You don't ask if he means gut worms or mouth worms. Both feel possible now. You take a swig from a shared tin. The liquid hits your tongue like boiling nails. Your throat rebels, but you force it down. The aftertaste is numbing, tingling, almost. Maybe that's good, or maybe you've just lost a layer of tissue. Either way, the others nod like you passed some unspoken test. Around here, dental hygiene isn't a routine, it's a ritual. A superstition, a wager, and the tools are whatever's close at hand. Like charcoal, everyone has opinions, some swear by it. Crushed coal and a rag, rub hard and spit. Scours like sand, but clean, they say. Others whisper that it ruins enamel, leaves teeth soft as wet bread. You tried it once, tasted like chimney soot. Spit black for hours, never again, and yet. You try it again if the ache returns. Down below deck, the true alchemists have gathered. In the dim lamplight, they mix brews like warlocks. A pinch of this, a dash of that, gunpowder is back in fashion again. They whisper about it like it's sacred and deadly. Jeb's there, old Yep with the beard like kelp and half a smile. He claims his blend is the good stuff, gunpowder, clove scrapings, and just one drop of whale oil. Whale oil, you wince, cured my bleeding gums, he says, pulling down his lip for proof. Used to gush like a fountain, you notice the gaps in his front teeth. Decide not to mention them. Yep offers you a dab. Just a smear, rubbed across your gums with a fingertip. It tingles, then it warms, then it burns. Not sharp, but alive, like your mouth has been slapped by a ghost. You hold your face still, nodding. Good blend, damn right, Yep grins. The day grows hotter, the deck sizzles underfoot. And yet, the experiments multiply. Someone's boiling bark, another is steeping mint in rum. The cook's assistant barefoot and grinning swears by the dregs of a pickled herring barrel. Claims the salt draws the filth out, you're not sure what filth he means. But after one whiff, you decide to pass. Still, it's all strangely beautiful in its chaos. The way everyone shares, teaches, warns. There's no pride in secrecy here, only in surviving. Because toothache on a ship isn't just pain, it's failure, it's weakness. It's the surgeon's crank and a rag between your teeth. It's the risk of being deemed unfit, of being cut loose or left behind. You remember a story, South Pacific. Sailor's cheek swelled, so bad he could barely breathe. Surgeon sliced it open with a fishhook. Packed it with vinegar-soaked cloth. No anesthesia, no mercy. Just rum and time. The man was back on deck in 2 days. Because rest is a luxury the sea doesn't offer. That night, in your hammock again, you count them, everything you put in your mouth today. Gunpowder, vinegar, whale oil, rum, brine, charcoal, clove, bark. You pause. Maybe grease off a rope end till there was a moment, during a lull, when your molars needed something to grind. You smile, softly, in disbelief. Somewhere, far from here, men in waistcoats are swirling brandy and cleaning their teeth with ivory-handled brushes. Meanwhile, you're lying in your own sweat, wondering if gunpowder will eat through your molars by sunrise. But here's the truth. Those men couldn't last a week out here. Not without their lotions, their parlors, their dentists on call. You've got none of that. Just seawater, salt, smoke, desperation, and somehow. It's enough. Tomorrow, maybe you'll try nutmeg. Or barter for a sliver of lime peel someone claimed it sweetens the breath. Or maybe you'll do nothing, just to see what happens, but probably not. Because if there's one truth you've earned, it's this. Out here, a clean mouth won't guarantee survival. But it might just keep you off the surgeon's list one more day. Sleep doesn't come easy tonight, not with that lingering sting still ghosting along your gum line. You shift restlessly in your hammock, mouth slightly open, tongue gingerly pressing against your molars, half expecting one to come loose in the dark. But no, everything's still intact, for now. Above you, the ship creaks with its usual nighttime sounds, wood groaning, rigging whispering, some poor soul coughing up yesterday's salt air a few hammocks away. And below, a metallic clang startles you, a rat, probably, knocking over the tin someone used to rinse with that homemade vinegar brine. The tang still haunts your mouth. When morning comes, it does so unceremoniously. Bruised skies, aching joints, and that dull, bitter taste at the back of your throat before you've even rolled up right. But today, something's different. A murmur is moving through the crew, subtle as wine before a squall, a rumor. Word is, one of the midshipmen, barely more than a boy, has been using something called tooth powder. Real tooth powder, not your deck-made paste of gunpowder and whale oil. This stuff came from land, England. He guards it like a captain's chart, but today, curiosity outweighs his caution. You and a few others gather around as he opens the tin chalk white, faintly floral. It smells clean, artificially so, suspiciously so. He dips a bit of cloth into the powder and rubs his teeth with the sort of precision that feels absurdly refined for this world of splinters and sweat. Watching him is like watching someone try to waltz on a wet deck. Later you learn between swabs and rope pulls that these commercial powders are becoming a thing ashore. Crushed oyster shells, burnt bread, powdered brick, yes, brick, and sometimes lavender or orris root for scent. Some even sneak in sugar, which you think defeats the entire point. Still, back on land, these powders are symbols of class, civility. Here, they're practically contraband. You corner the boy later and ask, gently, if you might try some. He hesitates, eyeing you as though you might dump it overboard by accident. But at last, he offers a pinch, one pinch. You rub it onto your teeth with the edge of your sleeve, careful not to spill a grain. It doesn't taste good, not quite, but it's not foul either. Just passably tolerable, clean, in a foreign way. And afterward, your teeth feel smoother, less like weathered bone, and more like something you might trust in a smile. The feeling doesn't last. By evening, you're back to gnawing hardtack and wiping your face with your sleeve. But for those few hours, you felt oddly human. It was like glimpsing your old self in a fogged mirror, civilized, almost, whole. And just when you think things can't get weirder, the carpenter's mate offers a theory. Snail shells, he says through a mouthful of salted fish. Back home, they crush snail shells to clean teeth. You pause mid-chew. Snails, fine grit, gentler than charcoal. More natural, too. The idea lodges itself in your brain like a splinter. Snail shell powder, mixed with oil, maybe, or vinegar. Primitive toothpaste. Is it disgusting or brilliant? You've long since lost the line between the two. Then come the folklore cures. One sailor swears that sleeping with a silver coin under your tongue wards off rot. Another insists the Portuguese chew bay leaves to disinfect their mouths. A third believes that burning dried rosemary and breathing through your teeth kills everything festering in your gums. You increasingly convinced that half this ship is an unregulated chemistry lab and the other half a superstition society. Or both. Later that week, a fresh rumor reaches you, this one stranger still. A dentist, not a surgeon or a drunken tooth puller, but someone trained to fix mouths and only mouths. You scoff until someone swears they saw one. In Liverpool, in Boston, even in Havana. These land-based miracle workers, they say, offer extractions, filings, even gold leaf treatments. And this is the kicker: they sell real toothbrushes. Bone-handled, stiff-bristled, imported from France or Germany. You try to picture one. Try to imagine brushing with something that isn't tea soaked in rum or scratched together from old rope. Some even got flavored pastes now. A messmate tells you later. Eyes distant, flavored, you ask, disbelieving. Hey, peppermint, cinnamon, fancy stuff. You chew on that idea: cinnamon toothpaste. It feels absurd, almost obscene. Then someone says it, the question no one wants to ask aloud. You think we lines ever get something like that out here? No one answers. Because on this ship, dental care isn't about flavors or bone handles. It's about not dying, about holding onto your molars long enough to finish your next ration. To speak clearly, to keep chewing. And so you lie in your hammock once more, lips parted, tongue gently tracing the worn, chipped edges of your teeth. You think of everything they've survived: gunpowder, vinegar, salt, hardtack, even the edge of a nail. They're cracked, stained, and barely hanging on. But they're still there, and so are you. Tomorrow, you'll try again. Because on this ship, oral hygiene isn't about health, it's rebellion, it's defiance. It's the stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll have something left to smile with, if and when you make it home. Your teeth feel looser this morning, not like they're ready to fall out, not yet. But there's that subtle ache again, that quiet pressure just beneath the gum line, a warning. You chew your hardtack carefully, slowly, as if your molars are glass instead of bone. When you rinse your mouth with a splash of stale water, the spit comes out with the faintest tinge of pink, just a whisper of blood. You tell yourself it's nothing. But you know it is, and you're not alone. The usual banter: who bit into what, who's tougher than who has gone quiet. Men keep to themselves, the laughers don't laugh. The midshipman with the fancy tooth powder, he hasn't brought it out again. His secret treasure, once the envy of half the deck, has vanished back into the shadows of his footlocker, guarded like a map to buried gold. So you're back to old tricks, scouring your teeth with ash, swirling salt water if you can find it, rubbing mint on your gums when the cook isn't looking. One man's taken to scrubbing his tongue with a frayed rope fiber, like he's punishing it. Everyone's improvising. Everyone's trying not to admit they're scared. But something's changed. It isn't just your gums. It's the way people are thinking. Where once it was myths and muttering, now there's talk, actual talk about what helps, what hurts, what might save you from a toothless future. It's like the crew has collectively begun to wonder, for the first time, whether oral care could be more than superstition, whether it might actually matter. One old sailor, who guards his last 3 teeth like precious stones, tells you about an apothecary in Kingston who mixed crushed coral and lemon peel into a cleaning paste. Hurts like sin, he says with pride, but it scares the rot. Another man claims powdered tobacco keeps the mouth clean. Someone else, probably joking, probably not, says he saw a Frenchman use honey and sand. You've learned not to dismiss anything. History is slippery out here. Sailors' habits weren't recorded with much care. Some ships enforced morning scrapes, others left men to rot. The truth, like the sea, shifts with every wave. But you're starting to think it doesn't matter whether these routines were real, or even if they weren't. Maybe it's the trying that matters, because trying gives you something to own, something small, something yours. You can't control the waves, or the wind, or whether the ship will ever reach port. But if you can keep your gums from bleeding for one more day, that's a kind of power, a kind of dignity. You remember what the quartermaster said weeks ago: rot starts in the mouth. At the time, you thought he meant gum disease. But now, lying in your hammock at night, you understand it's more than that. Let your mouth rot, and soon your confidence follows. Your appetite, your voice, your very sense of self. A man who can't chew is halfway to being buried. So tonight, you mix up something different. You steal a piece of chalk from the carpenter's markings, scrape a tiny drop of oil from the lantern wick, crush a lump of charcoal down to dust. You stir it all together with the edge of a spoon, then rub it on your teeth with a scrap of cloth torn from your shirt. It burns, your gums throb like they've caught fire. But the sting is grounding it, feels like something fighting back. You sit there after, breathing slow, tongue pressed gently against your teeth. They're still there, still yours, and cleaner, maybe, than they've been in weeks. You allow yourself a small smile, not for anyone else, just for you. Up in the rafters, beyond the ropes and damp beams, stars blink through the mist. You listen, the soft slap of the sea against the hull, the far-off cough of a crewman in his sleep, the creak of wood aching under weight. This is your world, cramped, cold, constant, but tonight, you own one small victory. You kept your teeth another day. As you settle into the sway of your hammock, eyes heavy, you start to wonder what sailors 100 years from now will do. Will they laugh at these rituals? Will they mock the gunpowder and vinegar and mint leaves? Maybe, but they'll never understand what it meant to do all this while the sea clawed at your bones. They'll never know the weight of a molar held through a hurricane. They'll never know how it felt to trade vinegar between 6 men like it was sacred. That's the legacy in your jaw, the story behind your bite. A piece of history etched not in parchment, but in enamel. And if tomorrow your gums bleed again, if a tooth wobbles loose or falls out entirely, you'll smile anyway, because today, you fought back. And tonight, with your tongue resting gently behind your teeth, you fall asleep not like a man losing pieces of himself, but like someone who's still whole, still here, still smiling. The morning breaks cold and colorless, the sea heaving gently beneath a sky the color of old tin. You stretch your jaw out of habit slow, cautious. The usual tightness greets you, a dull ache humming along your molars. Your tongue grazes your teeth, still there, still yours. But not everyone aboard can say the same. The old sailor, you've long respected the one with the cracked voice and unshakable balance on storm-slicked wood spits read into the sea this morning and says nothing. His mouth is quieter now. One less tooth, one more defeat, yet he doesn't flinch. Just scrubs the deck with the same rhythm as always, as if daring the world to take something else. And maybe that's the secret. He's made peace with the rot. Not surrender, just acceptance, but you haven't, not yet. As the ship groans its way toward port still distant, still imagined you feel the tension pulling taut inside you again, that thin thread between giving in and holding on. You could stop with the brine, the burning ash paste, the salt rubbed raw into your gums. Let the decay win quietly, painlessly. It would be easier, but not cleaner, not better. So at night, under the low flicker of the mess lamp, the talk returns half joke, half gospel. One man claims gunpowder's the best medicine the sea ever gave. Another insists it's rotting everyone from the inside. A third flashes a grin just 3 teeth left and calls it proof of divine favor. No one knows the truth. Maybe no one cares. But everyone keeps brushing. Historians, if they ever try to untangle all this, might still argue about what helped and what harmed. Maybe powdered charcoal did nothing but stain. Maybe salt was more ritual than remedy, but none of that really matters. What matters is this: you tried. In a world where storms claimed ships, disease claimed legs, and punishment came by lash and chain, you chose to fight for your teeth. Not with ivory brushes or polished silver, but with whatever you had: fire and cloth, vinegar and grit, charcoal and hope. That fight was yours. So when land finally breaks the horizon and the sails swell with the weight of return, your mouth throbs, but you smile. Because you're not just walking off this ship, you're carrying proof. A crooked, aching monument of defiance, still tucked behind your lips. When you're old and dry-footed, someone will ask about life at sea. About storms and scurvy, about danger and loss. And you'll grin, maybe gummy, maybe chipped tan, say, "We brushed with gunpowder." They'll laugh. Think it's a sailor's yarn, but you'll know. Wind down final 300 words. Now the ship drifts into memory, its wood softening, its sails drooping like tired lungs. The sea no longer growls, it murmurs, a low, steady breath across the hull, cradling what's left of the noise and blood and fire. You're in your hammock again, eyes closed, body weightless. The sting in your gums is still there, but fading like the echo of a bell long stopped ringing. Your jaw slackens, your fingers uncurl. Even your breath feels rinsed. Gone is the vinegar. Gone the wire scrubbing and bristle bleeding. All of it slipping away now, just smoke through the lines, memory through the mist. The crew has gone quiet too, a mutter here, a sigh there. All dreaming of dry boots and warm broth and a bite of bread that doesn't chip your teeth. The ship groans in her sleep. And in that lull, something deeper arrives, not silence, not pain, secco, peace. It doesn't come often out here. But tonight, you've earned it, so let the sea hum its lullaby. Let the stars watch over you, blinking through the rigging. No storms chase you now, no toothaches, no sharp metal tools, no biting rinses, just rest, honest, bone-deep rest. And if you dream, let it be of cool mint, of soft bristles, of water that doesn't taste like rust or rum. You're off duty now. The war inside your mouth is quiet for tonight. Let the rod wait, let the sea wait. You have your breath, you have your sleep, and, for one more night, you still have your teeth. That's enough, that's secco. The ship has gone quiet now. Just the steady creak of ropes swaying in the dark and the soft slap of water against the hull. You're not swabbing the deck or bracing against storms anymore. Tonight, the only thing left to do is rest. Your jaw still aches, your gums still throb, but not like before. Not like surrender. This pain feels earned. Like something that proves you made it through. No one talks much anymore. Even laughter has softened. The sea does that, it humbles everything eventually. But you've held on. Tooth by tooth, scrape by scrape, you fought to keep something most men gave up long ago. Not just health but pride, memory, self. And now, as the darkness folds over the ship, you listen to the breath of your crewmates sleeping nearby. Some with fewer teeth, some with none, but all of them part of the same strange brotherhood, men who brushed with fire and grit just to hold on to one small piece of control. You shift in your hammock, the sailcloth creaks beneath you. Your tongue presses gently against your molars, counting, checking. Still there, you smile, barely, let it ache. Because that ache is proof you survived, and if someone, somewhere, ever asks you how sailors kept their teeth in the age of salt and cannon fire, you'll grin with whatever's left and say, we brushed with gunpowder. They'll laugh, they always do, but you'll know better. And if this journey held you still for even a few minutes, you felt the sway of the sea and the weight of history, then don't just drift away. Drop anchor here, subscribe, like, share the tale. Because there are more nights like this ahead, and more forgotten truths still waiting in the dark. Until next time, sailor, rest easy, the sea can wait.